everybody. Once more, I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of the Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. As you know, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut. It's another way to say carpe diem, and it's all about going after the things that you want in life. And about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, I said to myself, something I'd like to do is rewatch Halt and Catch Fire, but actually talk about it with other humans. Because I hadn't really had people to talk about this show with before. And my intention was initially to just rewatch the episodes and do a deep dive on each of the episodes and see who I could find. And I was very quickly introduced to some members of the cast and crew. And it turned into doing about 70 interviews with cast and crew members. I mean, basically creating an oral history for the show. People from above and below the line, all sorts of members of the cast, the creators of the show, directors, music supervisors, costume designers, people who were editors, people who were writers, all kinds of folks talked about this show with me. It has been such a blast, and I wanted to take a moment to say thank you. I think most, if not all, of the content has dropped. I may have one other surprise up my sleeve that I'm working on, but I'm not going to promise it yet because it hasn't happened yet. I think you'll be excited about it if it does. This is either my last video or not my last video. But what I will say is I don't have a whole lot more in the bank right now. I've got all the interviews dropped so far. I've covered all of the episodes with you. And we even did some special bonus interviews with subject matter experts so that we could get a deeper look at some of the subjects that are explored in the show, from venture capital to cars to computers to comm decks. We looked at all different types of things. We talked to people who were TV journalists at the time who were covering the show and what the landscape was at the time when the show came out. All of that stuff has been dropped. I even added a couple of bonus follow-up additional content beyond all that after. And I wanted to take a moment to say thank you. I just never imagined this would be what it is. I feel incredibly fortunate that I stumbled onto, I already knew it was a great show. That's why I wanted to cover it. What I didn't know was the incredible community that I would stumble into, a community of both fans and people who worked on the show who truly loved their experience with this show. As fans, people have been deep diving on their own. They've been rewatching. People rewatch yearly. People in Reddit are talking about this. They've done deep dives on the episodes in writing. People on Twitter have been shouting into the void, please watch Halt and Catch Fire. There are Facebook communities that are dedicated to loving Halt and Catch Fire. There are Instagram communities dedicated to loving Halt and Catch Fire. I've found my way into all of those groups. There's a Wikipedia page, very well represented, full of information that you can get so much knowledge about this show from that. People who love this show really love this show, and they want to talk about this show. And, my interest in doing a deep dive was matched by people wanting to deeply discuss it and share comments that were equally interesting thought exercises. What a fun time this has been. This has been a show that the more you dig into it, the more you discover. It hasn't suffered from the deep dive. It hasn't fallen apart from a deep dive. It's actually bloomed and grown, and there's been more and more information brought to light. And fans come at this show with all different life experience, industries that they're from, interpretations, and we've all found a way to give each other new takes and insight on how we see the show. And for some of us, that's actually changed some things. So that's been such a blast. That's from the fan perspective. For cast and crew, to be able to speak with about 70 people from this show, when I started doing the interviews, my first interview was with Alana Kavanagh and Morgan Hinkleman, who played the youngest actors on the show. They played children for most of the show. They were children for most of the show. And they came on together, they melted our hearts, and they did this lovely interview. The amount of recall those two had for how young they were when they were on this show is incredible to me. But, I started out with this interview with cast members, and that was an interview that wasn't hard for me to do. I've watched a lot of cast interviews before for other projects that I had, that I wasn't the interviewer, but I've watched how people talk about what they do. Where it started to get really tricky and interesting was when I started to talk with people whose jobs I didn't really understand. I didn't know how to ask them questions, and I had to ask them, how do I ask you questions? And those people wanted to help me bring the best information out about the show, talking with directors, talking with editors of the show, talking with people, production designers, people who were producers on the show. And I had to say, literally, what did you do for a living on this show all day? And they would help walk me through some of the bullet points of things we could talk about so I could formulate some questions for them and make sure that we would shine the best possible light on the work that they did, the most informative light on the work that they did. These interviews were sometimes team efforts. So I just and people were game for it. And people went back and watched their episodes, and they called up other people they worked on the show with, and they asked for clarifying questions. Did you do this part, or did I do this part? Who did this part? People are still connected with each other. People reconnected with each other. This has been beyond anything that I could have imagined when it all started. And I just wanted to say thank you for everybody being along for this ride. I don't have anything else in the can to drop. So this could be my final hurrah, unless it's not. Uh, so I'm not going to say any more about that because I'm working on something that hasn't happened, and I don't want to disappoint people. But whether this is a final goodbye or an almost final goodbye, I still felt like a goodbye was warranted and a thank you was warranted to all the people that I've met through this. What a blast it's been to meet you and to hear your thoughts on this show. And I hope you'll stay connected. I have so much other content that I've been dropping and working on. Um, I'll say, in case this is inspiring to any of you for anything else that you want to check out, here's some of the stuff that I've been doing. First of all, I am planning on doing a Daisy Jones and the Six rewatch. Um, at this stage, still working through the format. The fires in Los Angeles have sort of put a wrench in some thoughts about how I wanted to approach this and the timing of how I approach it. But I'm still doing a deep dive on that show, and I'm really excited to get into it. So if you like that show, that's one you'll want to check out. Also, every week I drop a Take the Doughnut interview. They're inspirational interviews with people all about going after opportunity in life. I've got all kinds of interviews that I've dropped with all different kinds of people from all different kinds of industries and walks of life. So that's a really fun one. You never know who you're going to see represented there. I've done a Inktober, just a month of horror movies for those who are horror movie buffs. Had such a blast curating the list of movies that I talked about. That I also covered as a deep dive. Also, I've been working on Rom-Com Month. That's been a more current project, 28 days of rom-coms. So if you're interested in rom-com movies, those aren't deep dives, but I have a ton of guests that I'm bringing on to talk about these movies. And we're talking about 10 things we love about each of those films on each day. So that's another one that's fun. A personal challenge that I've been doing this year has been I've danced all my life in some form or other. I was a gymnast in the beginning, and now since gymnastics ended, I dance. And I thought it would be really interesting to do a challenge for myself where I've often been in a position to choreograph dances for myself or others, but I don't tend to show that work. So my challenge to myself this year was, can I do 12 months of choreography, one dance per month, sometimes really testing myself with the genre. and actually publishing them here, which is a little scary. And I had like a million reasons not to do it, but I am doing it anyway. So hopefully you enjoy that. We'll see what I don't know what I'm going to get from this process, but it's been really interesting, the exercise of doing it, both the literal exercise and the act of trying to do this. So that's been fun as well. Oh my goodness, there's so many things that I've been working on that I'm excited to share with you. And if you found me through this podcast, I hope that'll give you more things to explore along the way. Once again, a wholehearted thank you from me for the last time or the second to last time, or I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, it's been a journey and I've been very excited to be on it with you. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. And please go out and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Bye.